Hello, my name's Courtney Roberts, and I just want to take a minute of your time to talk to you about two things, astrology and the Super Bowl. Now, I know you might be thinking, what do these two have to do with each other? Well, quite a lot, actually. I've found that when we examine the astrological charts for major sporting events, these very intense, very public contests like the Super Bowl, we find the most amazing display of real astrology in action, of basic astrological principles played out and writ large for all to see, if we would but look. We might also get a little extra insight into what could be happening at the end of the game, which is apparently of some interest to certain people. So bear with me, we'll get to that. But first, just a few basics.
What we're looking at here is a chart, the basic working tool of any astrologer. The astrological chart is really just a map of the sky. It's a picture or a diagram that shows us where all the planets of the solar system and the sun and the moon are in relationship to a specific place on Earth at a specific point in time. Now, this particular chart is set for the approximate end of the Super Bowl this Sunday in Glendale, Arizona. Now, let's just say, for sake of argument, that you are there. You managed to get tickets, or better yet, you're a ref. You're a referee, and this is a picture of you standing bolt upright in the middle of the field in the final closing minutes of the Super Bowl with all the planets in the sky beautifully arrayed around you. In the chart, we draw the sky as a circle. And within that circle, there's a cross. There's a set of crosshairs, if you will. And at the 9 o'clock point to the left, that dark line represents the eastern horizon. It shows us what's rising in the east, where the sun would be when it's coming up at sunrise. We call that the ascendant or the rising sign. Directly across from that is the descendant at the 3 o'clock point. Now, this depicts the place where the sun would be setting at sunset. That arrow pointing straight up overhead represents the midheaven, the point of the sun's highest culmination in the sky. That little arrow pointing directly down represents what we call the icy, or the bottom of the sky. This is where the sun would be around midnight.
Those 4 points of the cross within the circle of the chart are also known as the angles. And the angles are actually the most important or influential part of any astrological chart. That means that if the sun or the moon or any of the planets are on or near one of the current angles, then that planet's influence is greatly magnified throughout the given situation. You might want to compare it to the moment of sunrise or sunset, when the sun on the horizon just naturally dominates the atmosphere, and your attention is automatically drawn to it. It's the same way within any astrological situation. Any planets on or near the current angles will naturally dominate throughout the given situation, whether that situation is the birth of an individual, or, in this case, the end of the Super Bowl.
Now, going back to that chart set for the end of this Sunday's Super Bowl, we can see that in the closing minutes of the fourth quarter, the planet Saturn in the sign Virgo will be rising in the east on the ascendant. The planet Saturn in Virgo will be the most angular planet at the end of the Super Bowl. So that's telling us that the planet Saturn could have some extra input or influence into what actually transpires in those dramatic closing minutes. Now, just to make it a little more interesting, Giants head coach Tom Coughlin will also be rising in the east at the end of this game. In other words, Coughlin was born when the sun in the sign Virgo was at exactly the same point as that current Saturn in Virgo. What I've done here is to put the birth chart, the birth planetary positions of Coughlin in that outer circle arrayed around the inner wheel, which is the chart for the end of the game. And we can see that just like that Saturn, Tom Coughlin's sun is also rising on the ascendant at the end of the game.
That's exactly what we would expect to see at the end of such a major sporting contest like the Super Bowl. You see, every individual is also born at a specific point and place in time, and we all carry with us that imprint, that map of the planetary positions at our own moment of birth. Now, what that means is that just as the current planets are constantly circulating around the sky and through the angles of the current chart, so too every individual's birth planets are also constantly circulating around the sky and through the angles of the current chart, and bringing with them moments of ever-increasing influence and obscurity depending upon their current position within the astrological situation. This means that at the end of major sporting events, these intense contests where millions and millions of viewers are all focused, watching, wanting the same thing, we very often find that the winning coaches and players end the match with either their suns or other important birth planets placed upon the current angles of the game chart. For instance, in last year's Super Bowl, both Tony Dungy and Peyton Manning of the Colts ended the match with their suns on the current angles. So does this mean that Tom Coughlin is definitely going to win the Super Bowl? Well, there is one slight complication. There always is.
Here's our chart for the end of the Super Bowl again. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put another chart around it in the outer circle. This time I'm going to put the birth planets for Patriots quarterback Tom Brady. And what we see right away is that Brady was also born with an important planet at that exact same spot in the sign Virgo. Brady was born with Mercury in Virgo. Now, Mercury is actually quite strong in Virgo. It's very much at home in that sign. So Brady is ideally positioned to do battle against Tom Coughlin at this exact point in time and space.
And that's exactly what we would expect to see in the charts for a game of this magnitude. So, who's going to win? As if that were somehow already decided beforehand. Now, I'm not saying whether it is or it isn't, but I will say this. No one wants to see the Patriots win more than I do. And with all that Virgo predominating at the end of the match, the quest for perfection will be almost overwhelming. But the charts are telling us this. The Giants, who are 12-point underdogs, are going to be in this thing till the bitter end. The game is probably going to be much closer than that. The most exciting part of all of this is being able to share with you this bold display of real astrology in action and of our basic astrological principles writ large for all to see. So thank you for watching and enjoy the game.